Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Lens Neighborhood Livability Association meeting. And we have several guests tonight. As Paulo mentioned beforehand, every Saturday morning, the same old faces show up at West Rock and clean up the trash that goes out in the neighborhood. And they donate to our organization. That's who pays for the pizza and the other things that we do. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Austin Daniel, who's a candidate for District 46.
Hello everyone, my name is Austin Daniel. I am running for House District 46, which is basically this big collection of neighborhoods out here in Southeast Portland. So Lents, Brentwood, Darlington, Foster Powell, South Tabor, the edge of Montevilla, Mount Scott, Arleta. It's currently has a Confan, who is the incumbent, but she's running for a Senate seat. And so with that being open, I decided to run, but not because I like politics, because I actually don't really like politics, but my political journey involves me being a Democrat my entire adult voting life, ever since I was 18 years old. But I don't really identify with the Democratic Party anymore. And here's the thing, I'm a gay person of color. I will always be a liberal at heart. But I think that we've shifted a little too far left over the last 8 years as a result of a lot of highly convincing, ideologically driven propaganda. And the Democratic Party means well. I'm not trying to demonize them. They're very good people. They have enormous hearts. They're trying to do the right thing. But I can't get behind these policies that ended up backfiring in our faces. We implemented policies like drug decriminalization, harm reduction, police defunding, zero bail, really lax laws. And we did so with the absolute best of intentions. But the result of that were a lot of unintended consequences. And so what comes to mind are two of my favorite phrases that when you put them together, it kind of makes more sense than it ever has historically for me. And those are the road to hell, let's start over. It's be careful what you wish for, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so I was once far left for a short amount of time, and so I kind of have this insight as an insider or a whistleblower who is willing to admit, hey, we made some mistakes, let's pull back on the reins a little bit. And my political ethos is something that I've been talking about a lot online on Instagram and other social media outlets. And it's caught a lot of attention to a lot of other people who were in the far left and decided to shift back to being more politically moderate. And that caught a lot of attention from local constituents and politicians who said, Austin, you have got to run for politics. And it's I don't want to run for politics. I have no prior government experience, and I'm not a political science major. And they said, don't even worry about that, because the people who are currently in politics, who do have those in their credentials, that didn't keep them from pushing us too far to the edge. And I think this has been a really good learning experience for everybody for the last 8 years, that we finally tested our boundaries, where if you have all these political ideologies that push you into voting for policies that mean well, you find out that when they backfire, it's time to start amending some things. Start admitting that we made a mistake. I voted on things that I'm not happy with, but I'm willing to admit that. And the problem is the current chaos that we're experiencing, other politicians, people currently in politics, or people running, the other candidates, they're not willing to admit that. They think that the current chaos that we're dealing with right now in terms of the rise in crime, homelessness, addiction, and mental health is that those are just a reflection of the times, and that these policies that literally debunk themselves simply need more time. And I politely disagree. I don't think that that's fair at all. What happened to the ethos of Portland over the last, not just Portland, basically most of the liberals in the United States, it shifted far left because of, I'm going to reference a study. So there was this psychological experiment that was conducted on a large group of very well-intended liberal women. And it was all about ideologies in the workplace, discrimination in the workplace based on appearance, most specifically facial disfigurement, so scarring on the face. Has anyone heard about this experiment? No, it's really fascinating. So what they did is they taught this group of women all of these ideologies on work discrimination based on scars on the face. And then after that, they had this large group of professional makeup artists come into the room and apply convincingly realistic looking scars onto the women's faces, and then show them their reflections so that they can look in the mirror and see just how convincingly disfigured that they looked. And in the building next door was a job fair convention. And what they had these women do was bring with them their resumes and go next door to this convention and engage in job interviews. And they were supposed to pay attention to see whether or not they felt like they were discriminated against based on the scars on their faces. But the catch was, just before each woman went into the interview, one of the makeup artists would say, hey, hold on a tick, let me touch it up a little bit. And in the event of pretending to touch up the scars on their faces, they actually removed the scars completely so that their faces were completely clean. But the women didn't know that because they didn't see their reflection. So they went into these interviews thinking that they looked disfigured, but they really weren't. After the interview, the makeup artist came back and they pretended to wash off a face that was already clean. And then the women engaged in these surveys to gauge whether or not that they were discriminated against. Can anyone guess what percentage of women thought that they were discriminated against based on scars that weren't actually there?
70?
70?
80, yeah.
You're getting closer.
90?
More?
Oh.
100%.
100%.
Oh, wow.
And so 100% of them thought that. And many of them went so far as to citing a whole bullet list of specific examples of what the interviewer had said that they thought was a direct attack on scars on their faces that weren't actually there. And so what this psychological experiment teaches us is that when you inundate a well-intended public on ideologies on discrimination, that you are essentially priming us to seeing discrimination in situations where it doesn't actually exist. Now, I'm a gay person of color. I've lived in Portland for almost 20 years. I've never experienced homophobia or racism once the entire time. I feel like this is a very liberal city in a blue state. I've never felt more loved and included. I am technically, by the standard of the far left, oppressed. I don't feel like I'm oppressed at all. I don't feel like I'm oppressed, and I definitely don't feel like I don't have privilege because I went to college. I attended 9.5 years of very woke liberal Portland colleges. I am now a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. Prior to that, I'm not licensed yet, by the way. I'm still in the licensure process because I recently graduated. But I've run a very successful massage practice for the last 15 years, so I'm a business owner. And my partner and I, we bought our home about 5 years ago in Southeast Portland. And so I feel like I have a lot of privilege, actually, and I feel like I'm doing a lot better than a lot of my heteronormative white friends who are really struggling right now financially. And you know, my communities of the LGBTQIA2+ and the BIPOC communities, I don't feel like we are oppressed anymore. I feel like we have the spotlight and that we're given all kinds of opportunities, including we're being prioritized in healthcare, in social services, in education, and in career opportunities. And meanwhile, a lot of heteronormative white folks are being excluded from that. And I don't think that that's fair. I'm a Libra. I'm a naturally fair diplomatic mediator. And so this is the type of dialogue that I've been giving online. It's attracted a lot of attention and people urged me to run. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So that's why I'm running. You have a question?
Yeah, why are you running it? Are you an independent, Republican?
Oh, thank you. So I was going to say that I switched my registration from a Democrat to a NAV, non-affiliated voter. So it's nonpartisan. I'm not part of any party because ultimately I want to represent all people. And I'm actually really comforted to learn that the majority of Republicans that I've met in Oregon are actually extremely moderate. They're not these, racist bigots that we hear about in the news propaganda. The pretty much every single Republican I know is really respectful and caring of civil rights, gay marriage. Some of them are even all about supporting women's reproductive rights. And I like to talk about Ben West, Commissioner of Clackamas County. So he's a gay man, but he's a Republican. And he is married to a Democratic husband. And many years ago, I think it was in 2014, before they got married, they actually sued the state of Oregon and got gay marriage legalized in Oregon for all citizens. And They adopted a black son when he was age 6 years old, and now he's 18 and he's about to graduate from high school. And so, other than the fact that Ben West is a Republican, he is otherwise like the poster child of the Liberal Democratic Party. But when he was running for office recently, he was smeared by a bunch of far leftists because they, for their political convenience, they ignored the fact that of everything that I just mentioned about him, and they just zeroed in that he had a black son, and they had the audacity to call him a slave owner, which is just like, that's not inclusive. It's actually, and so that's one of the things that I was realizing when I was in the far left. It's like there was nothing about me that was being inclusive. I was being extremely divisive. Like I have the audacity to go on Facebook and identify everyone in my Facebook who had listed that they were Republican, and I would chew them out, thinking that I was doing the right thing. I genuinely thought that I was fighting racism when I was telling people, how could you possibly be a Republican? Don't you know that's racist? And it wasn't until about 2021 that I woke up and realized this is not inclusive at all. It's inadvertently divisive, and it's well-intended. Again, I'm not trying to demonize the far left. They are good people, they mean well, they have big hearts, they're trying to make new progressive changes, but what that's done is gotten everybody to start voting with their emotions and not with their brains. And so we end up voting in policies like Measure 110, which I'm guilty of voting in favor of. I thought that decriminalizing drugs was a great idea. You know, we wanted to shift from doing this punishment model of punishing criminals and addicts and instead give them rehabilitation and healing and recognize that, you know, these people have a root cause as to why that they've done these things, and we need to respect them and elevate them and, you know, give them the environment to heal. But the thing is, we didn't do any of that. All we did was enable them. We wanted to model everything after Portugal. Well, the thing about Portugal is Portugal's a very small country. It's only the size of about the state of Maine, and it's not divided into 50 states or even 2 states. It's entirely federalized, and so that allowed Portugal to implement the infrastructure necessary to help addicts and those who might most likely become addicts. And so Portugal, they already had all the services of drug treatment, detox facilities, services for the homeless, social services, vocational and educational services. It was pretty comprehensive and strategic, allowing them to decriminalize drugs. And the thing is, the truth about that is it actually hasn't even been perfect. If you go to Portugal and talk to the people there, they say that there are pros and cons, and depending on who you ask, some will say that the cons outweigh the pros, and others will say different. But in Oregon, we didn't do any of that. Not only did we not implement the infrastructure, but we decriminalized drugs during a pandemic, during a fentanyl crisis, which we had no idea what fentanyl really was until it, you know, blew up in our faces. And during a homelessness crisis, which exacerbated everything. So now we have this gamut of homelessness, crime, addiction, and mental illness. And one of the reasons why we don't have the infrastructure is actually because of this thing called ORS. It's the Oregon Revised Statute, Certificate of Need. So has anyone heard of Certificate of Need? You're laughing over there. Why are you laughing? You don't have to answer. It was rhetorical. So Certificate of Need, it was created in 1971. It is supported by the Oregon Health Authority, and it is designed to basically ensure the availability and affordability of healthcare by preventing the oversaturation of the medical market. So keeping there from being too many hospitals and treatment centers and facilities so that they're not competing with each other. And so it meant well, but what it's actually doing is it's keeping the Oregon Health Authority from being able to approve the operation and implementation of brand new drug treatment facilities and detox centers. And so I didn't know this, most voters who voted in favor of Measure 110 didn't know this, but Oregon is dead last in all 50 states in access to drug treatment and mental health services. And yet Measure 110 promised that if you're an addict, you will be given treatment. Well, how can you give them treatment if we don't have the infrastructure for it? And so we really put the cart before the horse in that one. And not only are we dead last in all 50 states, we are number 1 in drug overdose deaths per capita. We don't have the highest number of deaths, but yes, per capita we are. And it seems like that needs to be amended. And so if I am elected, that's the first thing that I want to do is amend ORS. I don't remember the number, but it is a certificate of need so that the Oregon Health Authority can stop pretending like they have their hands tied and they can start implementing the approval of drug treatment facilities and detox centers. Does anyone know who Kevin Dahlgren is? I know that Shar knows. Yeah. So Kevin Dahlgren is a hero. If you were to look him up online, he's been heavily smeared. And the reason why he's smeared is because he's done an incredible job of fixing the homelessness issue in Gresham. So historically, Gresham, I believe, was like the highest homeless population per capita in Oregon. And he single-handedly, over the course of a few years, with an incredibly strategic, diligent, and comprehensive strategy, he was able to get that number below 10. Not 10 per capita, but less than 10 people in total. And he was able to rehabilitate the homelessness population through the use of a database. And so what he was doing was every single day, making daily contact, 7 days a week, more than 8 hours a day, meeting all the homeless people and treating them like human beings, getting to know them, being just incredibly decent to them and earning their trust. And he has this database that where you can make a profile for each homeless person, and it's kind of a cumbersome system. You have to get all of their personal information, and sometimes they don't have a real name. Like sometimes the guy will be like, my name's Tank. It's like, your name's not Tank, but you know what I mean. It's like, and so it wasn't the easiest thing to work with, but they had to make do. And once you've made a profile of, you know, who they are, where they frequent, like what addresses or locations that they're usually at, and what their specific needs are, because not all homeless people are the same. Like there are people who still have their mental faculties, they're not drug addicts, and they are fully capable of taking the social services and using that to their advantage to propel them into their next stage of independence. Those are considered the low-hanging fruit. They represent about 30% of the homeless population, and they are the easiest to rehabilitate because they want help. And so he identifies who those people are and helps them first. And once you've created a profile for an individual, then you can start buying those things. And they just need the profile so that they can keep track of expenditures. And so you just buy them food every single day, meet them where they're at, talk to them, get to know them, earn their trust, figure out what their needs are, and then get them their needs. The other 70% are going to be people who actually don't tend to want help because usually they're drug addicts, and if you're so far gone with fentanyl, you're not going to be very responsive, you're not going to be willing to take help. And then there are those with mental health issues where, ironically, you know, most of the liberals don't realize this, but there are actually people who prefer to live on the streets, and they don't trust the person who works for the government saying, hi, I want to help you. You know, they're very paranoid, and they want to run away from those people. And so that took daily contact and just bringing them food and earning their trust, treating them like decent human beings. And he still managed to get the majority of these people the care that they needed, and the database actually kept track of that. The problem was he did so good at what he was doing is that he made everybody else in Multnomah County look completely incompetent, because Portland has the most funding, the most services, and the most manpower to accomplish what he was doing all by himself. So he made them look so incompetent that he actually got a lot of national news attention. He was interviewed multiple times on the news. And the people down in Multnomah County in Portland, they absolutely hated him. So what they did is they did an investigation on him, and they found out that he was making some ghost accounts, which, you know, he had to make do with less than ideal circumstances. There were oftentimes people that he tried to work with, but they weren't giving him information. So it made sense for him to make about 8 different accounts of just random names of men and women, and he would just cycle through them so that he could use that account to buy them something and give them their needs and win their trust. And so he was working with the system, probably without permission, but you know what, he was by himself, working so many days, it was a cumbersome task already, and he knew that he had to help these people. Well, that was turned into, you're committing identity theft. And it was like, he never at any point was he using that money for his own personal gain. He was doing it to help people. And so he ended up losing his job with helping the homeless in Gresham. He was arrested, and now he has a gag order. He's not allowed to talk about everything I just said, but I can say it. And he ended up going to jail, and the people who had basically started this investigation against him, the grifters who basically make a lot of money off of chaos, they had the audacity to go down into the jail and start laughing at him behind bars, which was just, that's how low that just shows the level of corruption that's in downtown. And Kevin had told me that social services are some of the most corrupt services because unfortunately there's a lot of money in chaos, and once you solve a problem, and if there's no problems, there's no funding. And so they have no financial incentive to actually solve homelessness, because as soon as we don't need them anymore, they don't have a job anymore. And so one thing I want to do when I'm in office is create a program that actually lines up these officials with jobs so that they are actually financially beholden to do what we have appointed them to do. Otherwise, they're just gonna, keep, what I'm trying to say, push the problem out farther and farther. So Ben West, Clackamas County Commissioner, Kevin Dahlgren did consulting with Ben West, and Ben West decided to hire about a team of 8 people to do exactly what Kevin Dahlgren has done. And in less than a year, they have rehabilitated probably more than 70% of their homeless population in all of Clackamas County in a very short amount of time. And they're on track to get as much of the remaining 30% as possible. And it's just using the exact same methods of Kevin Dahlgren that I had just mentioned. And so I'm friends with both Kevin Dahlgren and Commissioner Ben West, and they want me elected so that I can help implement those same strategies in Portland, because what we're doing in Portland is not working. We all agree with that, right?
Right.
And then I already said that I'm going to amend the certificate of need so that we can actually have facilities to treat addiction. And then I think we can all celebrate that DA Mike Schmidt is no longer going to be in office as of September, because we have voted on Nathan Vasquez. That's a really important thing to note, that the majority of Democrats that I've spoken to, we all feel bait and switched. Like, we meant well, but we're not into this far left nonsense anymore, and we want a more moderate thing to happen. And it's proof that we voted for Nathan Vasquez over DA Mike Schmidt, that there is hope. I think there is a lot of hope for Portland, and that gives me a chance of winning the seat as the non-affiliated voter, as the nonpartisan, against who I'm running against are Willie Chotson. He's a Democrat. He's heavily funded by the Democratic Party and heavily endorsed. Really nice guy. I've met him. He means well. He has a wife and 2 kids. He's a public defender. If you guys like him more, go ahead and vote for him. That's totally fine. I hope he does well. But sadly, I do question his discernment when he is buddies with DA Mike Schmidt. There's a lot of photos of the two of them canvassing together, doing things together, endorsing each other. They have a lot of the same endorsements and a lot of the same big funders. And so it seems like a level of cronyism that I'm not really all that comfortable with. And so either Willie is naive or he's in on it, which neither of the two are ideal for an Oregon legislator. I don't want to smear him, because again, he's a really nice guy and he means well, but I do think that he might be a little bit of a pawn. And so we'll see. Is anyone keeping track of time, or am I going over a little bit?
Few minutes.
A few minutes over? Okay, I think that's all.
Are you running against anybody besides the Democrat? Or?
Yeah, the other one is Kevin Levy. He's an independent, and I don't even know if he'll even get on the ballot. He's not aware of the requirements to get on the ballot, and I'm not going to tell him either. But he's also a nice guy. But
not good for his campaign.
Yeah, he's a little far left though too. We chatted for over an hour, and yeah.
Which one, there's the far left, and then there's like the far right too.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you want something in the middle, just like
right.
Republicans, or a moderate Republican. You don't need an idiot.
Right. And I want to help do away with this illusion of far left and far right. The propaganda always tries to divide us more and more and more.
Right.
And it's, anytime you add propaganda to any situation, it creates this divisive binary where you have to pick a side and you feel like you have just enough information to feel justified in whatever side you've chosen, but you're lacking just enough nuance not to realize that you're being manipulated. And so it's creating just more and more division, and I want to do away with this divisiveness. I think we can all agree that it's really childish. It's really immature, right?
Austin, what are you doing to get elected? Like you're doing tonight?
Uh-huh.
Do you have enough funding and that kind of stuff?
I don't have enough funding. I am running a very modest grassroots campaign, and so it's hard to get funding as an NAB. I can't get the Democrats to fund me because I'm not gay and colored enough, maybe. I don't know. No, it's because I left the party, and well, actually, they left me. But I'm trying to gather as much support. I have 5 months between now and November to get the funding.
Are you going to do a lot of events like this, or what's your plan?
Yeah, I'm going to do more events. I'm going to throw some parties. I'm going to team up with a bunch of other moderate candidates like Sandeep Valley and Eli Arnold, and yeah, there's a lot of candidates that I've been networking with where we all agree, and I think that if we're all elected, we can all work together in just restoring the Portland that we all remember.
What are the boundaries of your district?
The boundaries, so Clatsop, House District 46, so Clatsop, about 112 and Stark Street, 205, it just depends, it's not a perfect square, and then like a Stark and Yamhill, and then like 45th, 52nd, and 60th. It just depends where you're
So
at.
112th to 45th, 60th, and then Stark to Clatsop?
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
Well, I wish you well.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You've used a lot of examples
Uh-huh.
as to, what's really going on in Portland.
Uh-huh.
How would you fight for our community? I mean, we're diverse here, probably more diverse than a lot of other communities as a low-income community.
Uh-huh.
We have a lot of people that come into our community and say, yeah, we're going to fight for you, but they bump up against this political element of just the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any strategies that you might use to combat that if you're elected?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Well, the question is, we need somebody to fight for Lens.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And listen to Lens.
Right.
And we do have a lot of people that
Mhm.
come into our community and say, yes, we're with you,
Uh-huh.
we're behind you, we want to support you,
Right.
we want to hear you,
Mhm.
but then when it comes push to shove, the far right or the far left wins out and
Uh-huh.
we lose. So it's like,
Yeah.
we need someone to really listen to what's going on in our
Uh-huh.
community and fight for our.
Well, I am here to listen. I'm definitely here to listen, to represent and advocate for you guys. And so if there are things that I'm missing in my conversation, please let me know so that I can, help push your ideas forward. The biggest things that I want to tackle are just the biggest issues that most Oregonians are facing, and that's the issues with crime, homelessness, addiction, and mental illness. And once we clean that up, I definitely want to help the affordability to live. We're the second highest tax city in the entire country, and it's clear that that money's being misappropriated because it looks like a disaster. And so there's a lot of things that I can do, and it's a pretty big list, and I think that this is too short of a meeting for me to talk about all of it.
Have
but
you gone to any other community meetings that in your district or
Yeah.
anyone else?
Yeah, and they're all very different. I was just at the Foster Powell.
What are you hearing from them that they're saying is
Uh-huh.
high on the list?
They are more about DEI, and I'm more like, no. Politely, and I don't want to make people feel like they're doing the wrong thing. It's just they have good intentions, but again, I don't feel oppressed. We don't need more DEI. We don't need children in schools who taking these white privilege surveys that rate their level of white privilege, that instills this sense of embarrassment, guilt, and shame and self-hate. It's not right. It's going too far. It means well, but it's...
And that's Foster Powell.
Yeah. They're nice people. And they like me because, I'm a Libra. I'm just trying to get everyone to get along. So, yeah. Anyway, I think I've
Thank you.
overshared. So
Thank you all.
thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Next we have Gena Gastaldi, the Pedestrian Realm Coordinator. I have
Got
her-
it.
Only because Shar has it on there.
You can move my laptop, David.
Is it okay if I close it? I can
Oh,
just
yeah.
stick mine on top?
Sure, there's the HDMI.
Realm
Watch Star Wars.
Do you need this for
No, I
anything?
don't, thank you.
We end up watching TV, I guess. Wakey, wakey.
We can all huddle around my laptop like it's a little campfire if we need to.
Would you like a hand? I have a similar TV at home.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
We always accept help.
Feel free to step in. I know where I need to go. I'm just not getting their settings.
Oh, okay.
HDMI
Oh, there you go.
channel. We want to.
Oh, we want to?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my 11-year-old parking in
Uh-huh.
our house. Thank you. All right. Switching gears just slightly. My name is Gena Gastaldi. I work at PBOT. I'm the Pedestrian Coordinator, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about a project, a construction project that's actually coming to Lentz, and a project that we're really excited about. One of the first of its kind in the country, actually. So I'll get into how we. I think you. I mean, maybe you don't, but we can talk about it more then. So we were recently awarded a grant from the Bureau of Environmental Services from their Percent for Green program. It's a program that takes funding from developers through their system development charges, and then BES collects the funds and then redistributes them for green infrastructure projects. So we were usually they give out a few small awards, and we were actually awarded the full grant cycle last year, the full amount. And this project is called Trees in the Curb Zone. The goal of the project is to really develop a process and a framework for planting trees in the street. We're working with Parks and Rec and Urban Forestry, BES, and others, and we are going into construction and actually piloting this project. So why would we do a crazy thing like plant trees in the street? So street trees provide green stormwater management. They can mitigate the urban heat island effect. But really, for the purpose of this project, is in a lot of places in town, like in this image here, we just don't have room. There's nowhere to plant a street tree. This is just east of 122nd on Fremont by Lewitt View Park, and you can see here, if we wanted to plant street trees, we either need to reconstruct essentially that whole sidewalk at about $4 million a mile, best case scenario, or we'd have to purchase private property, go and do a whole property dedication process with each individual property owner. It's very intense and very expensive, and PBOT doesn't have the money for that. So we could think about, maybe going into the parking zone. You can see here on this street, there's not a single car using parking on the on-street parking. So maybe in some cases we can reallocate or think about using some, we're never going to talk about all, some on-street parking for a different purpose. So we have policy backing. PDX, which is our city's pedestrian master plan that was adopted in 2019, has action 8.6 that talks about exploring an option like this with some images from other cities where periodic on-street parking is reallocated for space for green infrastructure. And then when we adopted the pedestrian design guide a couple of years ago, we took that idea a little bit further. Actually, we were in the middle of that process and the 2021 heat dome happened. And so we really took it to heart that, you know, not just tree advocates, not just bird advocates, even PBOT needs to take a bigger role in thinking about how we can help mitigate the urban heat island effect, or just that heat that we feel in cities with a lot of concrete and asphalt. So there's a couple examples in the pedestrian design guide as well. And we do have a couple examples here in Portland. They're one-offs. So there's an example on Southeast Hawthorne and 46. There's Porcino in the background if you hang out on Hawthorne. So these were done between PBOT and BES about 10 years ago. They're a one-off. We don't have standard drawings. It's not something that we can just kind of take and plug into another project. Like, this was never intended to be replicated. It was kind of a test about 10 years ago. And then we have Directors Park downtown, which is a great example. It's beautiful, but that was a full block redesign by a developer. So completely different context, not a retrofit. So I talked about the pedestrian design guide, which talks about like getting into a little bit more of the detail of kind of what this would look like and where we could potentially do it. So as we started to think of, as we got the money from BES and thinking about where we might want to do, you know, where we can do these kind of plantings, obviously we need to have on-street parking that we can reallocate. So we're not going to do this on a street that doesn't have on-street parking. We're not talking about taking away travel lanes or anything like that. We want a street with those curb-tight sidewalks like you saw, where there's literally nowhere to put a street tree even if you wanted to. We can't disrupt the water lines or the sewer line, the sanitary sewer, the gas line. You know, there's a whole plethora of things happening under the street. We obviously don't want to get in the way of emergency response, the fire department, anything like that. Fire Bureau is very much on board and a partner in this project too. And we don't want to put these on a street where we've said that we're not going to put curb extensions. So it's very wonky, but it's just, we have streets that we know down the road we want to do something. We want to build better bike lanes. We want to do a bus dedicated lane. We don't want to put this in and then rip it out in 5 years. So we track all of these things. And then Urban Forestry is a major partner on this project. And so they have their own planting standards too. All of the things that we really cannot get near. We can't get near fire hydrants, street signs, traffic lights, like for obvious reasons, safety and livability concerns. So making sure that we meet all of this and more.
What happens to bike lanes?
I'll get there.
Okay.
Nothing. So we're not doing it on streets with bike lanes yet.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That's fine.
But yeah, I mean, if we're going to plant trees in the street, on a street with bike lanes, then you have more leaves. And so thinking about that. So there's so many things we've had to think about as part of this pilot, and really making sure we get it right. And then I talked about heat. So you all probably already know this, but the Lentz neighborhood is one of the hottest neighborhoods in all of Portland. During the heat dome, the intersection of 92nd and Woodstock was the hottest intersection in the entire city. Over 70 community members died during that event. But, you know, it's not just these crazy, you know, heat events. It's just in the summertime. I like this graphic from, I think it's just from the news. And so it shows very clearly and graphically that our streets that are areas that have a lot of pavement, Foster, 82nd, Powell, Division, 205, you know, those areas are really, really hot in the summer, sometimes 20 degrees hotter than areas that have more tree cover, like Rocky Butte, Mount Tabor, and the west side. So the blue is cooler and the red is hotter, and this neighborhood's pretty red. This is all data from PSU, so we partnered with them too. So when I ran all that criteria through a GIS analysis, a few streets and kind of characteristics of streets started to rise to the top, and they all have a lot of similarities. So I'll just show you a couple. This is Southeast Holgate. I forget exactly where this is. I think just right east of 205 near Lent Elementary School.
99.
Oh, is this 99? Yeah. So right by Lent's school. So you can see there's nowhere to plant a tree even if we wanted to. You know, we don't want to take anyone's private property and deal with taking out their retaining walls and their fences or anything like that. We don't have the money even if we wanted to. We have on-street parking, but it's just very wide and very hot. If you ever go to like Tony's Garden Center on a 100-degree day, it is hot, hot, hot. Woodstock at 86 is another location that's really hot, and you can see, you're starting to see similar characteristics. Narrow furnishing zone, so urban forestry wouldn't give us a permit to plant a tree here even if we wanted to, so you just get this dead grass. On-street parking with not a car parked on this side to be seen. There's the bike lane here, like you mentioned. But you just start to see some characteristics of the types of streets that we could potentially look at doing something like this on. Southeast Duke, again, you have the on-street parking, very curb-tight sidewalk, hot, nowhere for street trees. So we worked with PSU to develop a little bit more granular detail and look at the heat a little bit closer. And so the streets of Flavel, Duke, Woodstock, and Holgate are some of the hottest streets in all of Portland.
But right now, on Flavel, you guys doing all the sidewalk updates, and it's not coordinating with you?
I'll get to that point. Yes, we all do coordinate. Yep. We put in the sidewalk, we have different requirements to try to put in sidewalks. So if they're putting in a full sidewalk and there's room and they can do the street trees, they will. But we're really talking about streets that we know we're not going to touch. Like there's no plan.
You just mentioned Flavel.
Yeah, we're not doing it on Flavel, just that we looked at Flavel.
What streets and lengths are you looking at doing?
We're doing it on Southeast Duke.
So is the homeowner responsible for that street now?
Nope, I'll get into that. You're jumping ahead, but these are really good
I just want to
questions.
get to the main facts here, not what streets we're doing on.
All right, well, we're doing it on Southeast Duke from 83rd, this is 82nd, from 83rd Avenue to 94th Avenue, here's 205 path, and then a couple of these side streets where we can. And no, the adjacent property owner is under no financial or maintenance responsibility. These are gonna be treated as a park tree, so Parks and Rec will own, maintain, water, prune. If they get hit by a drunk driver, they'll come out and replace them. So not like the tree on my street on Washington where the drunk driver took out and, I'm not gonna put it back in, it's just gonna get hit again. In this case, if that happens, Parks will come out. And we have a tree hotline number so folks can call if there's a problem.
Is there Friends with Trees, are they still around?
Friends of Trees, yeah, they are. But this urban forestry is gonna do all the maintenance. It's just, we can just wrap it up into our permit with forestry.
What kind of trees are you putting in? Is there going to be a height limit to them?
So since it's a pilot, we want to kind of try out a few different trees and see, trees probably, might not like living in the street. So we're actually going to do like 4 different species of trees so we can kind of track and see how they do. They'll be watered for 5 years. That's usually forestry does 3 years, but we're going to bump it up to 5 to give them a fighting chance.
Are power lines going to be an area that you guys avoid to put trees?
Yeah, so we won't be doing any of these under high voltage overhead power lines. If there's the lower voltage, we can still do some trees, but we've specified, more of a medium form tree in locations, and there are some where there's nothing overhead. We can do larger trees there, but there's an urban forestry inspector on the project, so an arborist will be the one that picks out the individual.
Because we lost power on my neighbor for about a week in the coldest area in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of trees fell on the power lines at Lens Park.
Yeah, I didn't have power for 8 days in January because 2
awful.
trees fell on ours too. Yeah, my kids go to Lent, so I understand like what happened in this area. So the project's doing all the site design, the standard drawing, which is really important because that means that we can then replicate it in other future projects. And then we are doing the construction, so it's going to be something like this, where it's kind of a curved extension that's about a foot off the curb so that we aren't impacting the storm water, any drainage or anything like that. They're about a little bit smaller than what a parked car dimension. We're digging down about 6 feet and then putting all fresh soil in there that the forestry team has picked out. And then we'll be waiting, so we don't want to plant a tree in June. July is kind of the worst time to plant a tree because it's too hot, so we'll come back in the fall and plant them.
What's the goal around the city for how many trees you want to plant?
For this one, we're gonna do the grant we can do with construction and all the design and planting. We're gonna do about 30, and they're all gonna be in lengths. So right now we're doing Duke, getting these out the door this summer. We're gonna go. So here's my piece about the ownership and maintenance. I'm doing the phase 2 analysis right now, so those will be around Bloomington Park, Lentz Park, and Lent Elementary School. So we're working with the school and the Parks Department to make sure there's no projects, like he was saying, make sure we're not getting on anyone's, getting involved in any other projects. But yeah.
Lentz is the pilot.
Lentz is the pilot. Lentz is the hottest neighborhood in Portland and has a very high proportion of those curb-tight sidewalks because it was developed by the county. You guys probably know this. So that's why it's not to the same standard as the city of Portland with those curb-tight sidewalks. So just really trying to find a way to bring more greenery and street trees. And I've been in contact with all the property owners on the corridor. I've gone door to door and talked to people. I've sent out postcards. I've sent out brochures. My phone number's on the website. People call me. And then there's some fun partnerships we're doing too. So urban forestry, since we can't do this in front of everyone's house, and everyone probably wouldn't want us to anyway, we are going to offer free yard trees to anyone on the street who wants a yard tree for their front yard. So urban forestry will deliver those and then give folks the information. And then this is a really cool one. They're called the Bird Alliance of Oregon now, but they heard about this project and reached out and said, we really want to be involved. And so the Backyard Habitat Program is going to waive their program fee for anyone on the street who would like to participate, which gets you tons of discounts for native plant nurseries. And then they're going to offer $300 native plant nursery gift cards to anyone on the street if people want to be doing some native plantings in their yard, and offer free technical assistance too. So it's a really cool partnership, and they're just excited about it. They have no financial gain as being part of it. They just wanted to jump in. So we issued the notice to proceed to the contractor, so construction starting next month. And then I'm working on phase 2, like I said, near Lentz Park, Bloomington Park, and Lent Elementary School. And then we'll start those phase 2 construction a little bit later this fall, around the same time that we plant the phase 1 trees. And then there's a project website. I try to update it really regularly, so everything I said tonight is on here, and this slightly longer version of this presentation, if you want to really dive into the nerdy analytics, is in there. And then my name and my email address. If anyone has any other questions, I'm always happy to talk about this project.
So who's responsible for the leaves? I'm curious.
Yeah, we added this.
On the one side of Woods Park.
Yeah.
And I get buried, say somewhere around Halloween, of leaves from that park.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we talk about buried, I've been times in our yard has been 3 foot of leaves gone in one night.
Wow.
And I can't take them to the park because, they're your leaves now.
Oh,
so I have to spend 3 months working them through my leaf bed.
Yeah, they'll just fall in the street like any street tree leaf would.
I live right off of Lentz Park at the bottom, and my street is lined with huge maple and oak, and nobody on that street picks up their leaves.
Yeah.
All go down, clog up the gutter, clog up the drain, go into me and my yard, and I'm right in the middle of the street. Does the street sweeper ever come down my street? No.
Yeah, you're probably not in the leaf district, but yeah. But maybe someday, I hope to someday live in the leaf district because we have so many trees that, it provides that nice shade.
I'm curious, are you using the same planners on these projects as the people who did Southeast Division Street?
No.
That's a whole other project, but no, that was designed before I worked at PBOT. That was a long, yeah.
So none of those same people have any input?
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, that project manager. Well, yeah, totally different. That's why I did so much analysis and kind of wanted to show all the thinking that went in behind it so that we know where the water line is, we know where the gas lines are. We're not going to have a division process, or, we're not going to realize there's a full run watershed water main in the middle of the street, which is what happened on Division.
Some of the map you had said, I think Woodstock and Bell were the hottest in the neighborhood. So you're not putting trees there because there's not
Woodstock.
No availability to put them there?
Yeah, so Woodstock, kind of getting back to the coordination piece, there's just so much development happening on Woodstock. It's just such a different street than Duke that we were afraid if we did do something like this on Woodstock, and then, you know, what does that look like for future development? What does that look like for driveways and just all the things that are gonna happen? It doesn't mean that we won't ever do it on Woodstock. This is just the first project.
Flavel.
Yeah, so Flavel, because there were different, like I think you mentioned, there are different processes and projects happening on Flavel. So this is just the first time we've literally ever done this. We tried to pick a street that we're like, let's pick one that we can practice this, be thoughtful, be good stewards of the money, and make sure we do it right and can actually deliver it, and not pick a street like Hawthorne or, you know, 33rd or something.
You picked the spot that was the hottest.
Yeah, Duke is one of the hottest. We also had to pick what's feasible. You know, there's so much stuff happening underground. There's the high voltage overhead power lines, I think, that you mentioned. I mean, there were some places, and I can pull back up my analysis and share it with you guys. There were places that just seemed perfect. The water line was on one side of the street. The power lines were on that same side, but then we'd go in and I'd order utilities, and that's free. So like, why not just figure out what's going on? And then the gas line would be on the other side. So it's like, well, we can't blow up the neighborhood, so we're not gonna plant near a gas line. Or it'd be the perfect street in terms of the water would be on one side, and then we would have high voltage power on the other, which is just automatically can't do it. Yeah.
Totally off topic. Who is responsible for the bioswales that they put in Lens?
Oh, I don't know, probably BES, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Bureau of Environmental Services, yeah.
Because they were supposed to be maintained, I'm assuming, right?
I have questions. Yeah.
I don't know. I just wondered who was maintained, because they're not, I just wondered.
Yeah, there's a whole bioswale like stewardship program. I know the person that runs it because she's been involved in this too, helping give us guidance. I mean, these aren't bioswales, these aren't stormwater management. So,
I know. I'm
yeah.
just saying, I thought they were going to be maintained, and there's some that are really not.
Yeah, you can report them.
Oh, okay.
If you call 311, I saw some flyers in the back. That's like our city.
Right.
They take all the calls and then find the right person.
Right.
And trust me, they find us. I get 311 emails about 20 a day, so they do find us. So if you call 311, they're really good. They'll know who to route you to.
I believe they are outside contractors. They just renewed the contract.
Oh, did they?
Either this week or last week.
Oh, okay. So maybe they're ramping it.
Yeah, they've done some new contract updates. So I don't know if they cover all of them because there's a lot of them.
There are a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the current status just incentivizing homeowners to put a tree in their front yard in these areas where there aren't a lot of trees?
Yeah, so just generally like
Yeah,
citywide,
I mean, I get
yeah.
that these are areas where there's no strip between the sidewalk
Yeah.
and it, but like front lawn, or even
Yeah.
maybe in a strip that's
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
wide enough and not, there's no tree surface.
Yeah, so the cool thing about this program is that from a financial perspective, like the homeowner is never going to be responsible for these trees. These are a city asset, just like we wouldn't ask you to go prune a tree in Mount Tabor Park. So these are truly a city asset. There's no financial, folks aren't expected to water, do anything with them. That said, the urban forestry, which is part of Parks and Rec, they do all of the neighborhood tree planting. So they have like an opt-in program, they have an opt-out program, they do lots of neighborhood tree planting. They just did a huge street tree planting project in Montevilla. I think I saw Montevilla News did an article about it. So that was more for the street tree side. And then Parks also does the yard tree giveaways every summer where folks can get 2 free yard trees. And then as to kind of bolster that, to take away even, to make it easier, because you do have to go pick those up, and obviously not everyone has access to a vehicle or can lift a heavy tree and lug it back to their house. That's why we're going to deliver yard trees to anyone on the street that wants one. We already have those set aside as part of the yard tree program, so it'll just be, so we'll deliver those to people just to make it a little bit easier. I mean, the goal of the program is really just to get more trees in Lents, or in any hot neighborhood. So right now we're just doing the pilot. I've probably gotten 30 to 40, maybe even more requests from people all around the city. We're like, well, can I do one of these in front of my house? And right now, no, maybe someday, but we've got to get this pilot figured out, finish out the grant, and then hopefully we can do more. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
you hear the news tonight that a judge,
Capital project.
if you're in jail for 87 days, you have an attorney, you're out.
I could talk so much longer, but I wanted to mention something similar.
I got a question. What happened to I think it was in Harnett County, the judge that was holding up the gun law? I think it was the bullets, the magazines. Was supposed to be. Whatever happened with that? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about, though? Yeah. We voted smaller.
I love the picture for me to put that up.
Yeah, right? That's a really pretty
It was some
picture,
judge in
I
Harnett
think.
County.
Is that a picture of the
So, but I don't know what the
That was a picture from the
I think, you know, I would just say, you gotta try. I mean, we put too many people of color and this and that in for these offenses, you know, 3 strikes you're out. So I was really glad to see. They
I have to
tried
go
it.
do kid
It didn't
pickup,
work.
but you all have my
Oh, it
email
wasn't.
address. If you have any questions or thoughts or, you know, burning
I'm sure they'll be solved. If folks want, I'm going to pass around. I only made 10 copies. I apologize. So maybe folks can take a look and pass it around. My name's Briana. I work for PBOT as well with Gena. I'm in our capital delivery division. And one of our project managers for 82nd Avenue. So happy to chat with you all about what we have going on 82nd. And I have a bunch of things I'm going to get through. I don't know if I'll get through them all, but I just thought I'd throw a bunch up here, see what you wanted to talk most about. So I wanted to kind of give you a broad brush overview of what we're doing on 82nd and why, talk a little bit about the safety history of 82nd Avenue. And then this project that is printed out that I passed around is called our major maintenance project. It's our big 2-mile paving and lots of other stuff project. So I wanted to get that in front of you. And then we have a number of other projects that are happening in Lens or near Lens that I just wanted to highlight. So as you might know, 82nd Avenue transferred from ODOT from the state to the city in 2022. So now the city owns it, with the exception of just a couple of these blue dots here. So Powell intersection, Halsey, Webster, Lombard. Those are still owned by ODOT, but the rest of it is us.
Is that David and Sean?
Right? I don't know. That is so cute.
Is that just the intersections themselves or how?
Just the intersection. Well, and Powell. You're right, Powell as well. But just in the context of 82nd Avenue, that one intersection is not part of ours. So our program's called Building a Better 82nd program. We have kind of 2 big buckets of work. One is happening from now until 2026. We call that our critical fixes work. It includes this big project that I just mentioned, also street lighting, and then a bunch of pedestrian crossing improvements. And then we have another phase of projects, Civic Corridor, that will happen after 2026. It includes probably more safety and maintenance, and improving a parallel bike network, and a transit project. And so to talk a little bit about that first bucket of work, we have a few things that we've already completed on 82nd since we got ownership of the road. So we did some striping updates, some signage updates. We updated all the back-end signal technology, which helps us run the signals better, can help us do some timing control along it. You've probably noticed we have some construction happening on 82nd already. We have 6 crossings, signalized pedestrian crossings that are under construction. We have street lighting that is under construction. And then we have these other 2 big kind of pieces, pavement and curb ramps starting soon this summer, as well as new traffic signals that will start soon. I mentioned we have a bus rapid transit project, or a transit project that's a joint effort being led by Metro, that TriMet and PBOT are also involved in, as well as Clackamas County. Just looking at how to better serve buses on 82nd Avenue, as it is the busiest ridership bus line in the region. So the design phase is funded, but we haven't found funding for construction yet. So this design phase could result in looking at grant funding from the Federal Transit Administration to fund that. So it's kind of big buckets of work. And I want to take just a moment, maybe a step backwards and say, why are we doing it? All of this work is really tied to two things. The big one is safety. The other one is just that the road needs a lot of repair and is in bad shape, and I think everybody knows that. Safety wise, this is one of our highest crash corridors in the entire city. An average of 2 deaths and 13 serious injuries per year happen on the corridor from traffic crashes. And so our serious injuries are things that are kind of like life-changing injuries. This represents 5% of citywide types of these collisions, so it's a pretty big percentage for just one big street. We know that dark conditions contribute to these types of crashes. We see a lot of crashes related to driveways, and also a lot of crashes related to left turns that happen away from traffic signals. So these are types of the things that we're trying to address with our upcoming projects.
I don't know if you
Yeah.
can at the end, but are there like real-time or like regularly published statistics on how much traffic's going on?
How many
much
cars?
traffic?
Yeah, sure, volume.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is that like in relation to like? Because I just feel like I don't live near 82nd, but I like near Chavez Way, and ever since the pandemic,
Yeah.
the traffic's been really bad.
Yeah.
I'm
There
just
are.
wondering for statistics on where you can find.
Yeah, I think
cars.
generally overall that I don't know that we've seen traffic counts fully rebound from pandemic times, but I don't have the link off the top of my head, but I can send it to you. Or I can send it to David, and maybe you can send it around. Is that okay? Yeah. So overview of the major maintenance project, what we're doing is 2 miles of repaving. Some of the repaving includes the outer lanes going all the way down to the dirt, basically, because the roadway is falling apart. So we need to build that back up, and so that will be quite a bit of work. The middle 3 lanes aren't as bad, so we'll just be able to do a grind and a repave is what we call it. We have 6 new or upgraded traffic signals. We have a new pedestrian crossing, and then we have about 170 trees that are going to be planted. So we're really excited about that. And I know that folks in the community have been asking for that for a very long time. So just a couple of renderings of one spot where what it would look like. This is right next to the, right next to Mitchell, looking south towards Foster. And so before and after, we have a tree-lined sidewalk, which will be a wider sidewalk on that west side of the street, tree-lined median in the middle, and then also a wider sidewalk on that east side, which is a little bit harder to see. A couple other things to note that come up sometimes: we are keeping 2 lanes of vehicle traffic in each direction, so that isn't changing along the corridor. Where we do have some extra right-of-way, we are going to widen the sidewalk and try to plant trees in the sidewalk area, so that's a big goal. Yeah.
I see that you've taken the center left turn lane and put a medium there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they did that on Division. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, so I know that folks have had a lot of feedback around Division, and we included median islands here. It's one of the most effective ways that we have to get folks to use left turns at signalized intersections, and also just creates a place for pedestrians to wait as they're crossing the street. It gives them a refuge, if you will.
Crosswalk. They should
Yeah.
be crossing the street there.
Yeah, you're right. Not right there. In this example, there's a little break in the median right here. We do see people cross the street already. I'm sure you've seen it. Not at signalized intersections.
Of course.
And we know that's going to continue to happen. People don't make the best decisions all the time, and our job is to try to limit the negative impacts of those decisions if they make, one that's
These
less
are
safe.
streets made for cars and businesses and traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do this, that tells us that we're not important. It's very difficult for those businesses on Division now. And it's very, very hard to navigate up and down that street. You've got to go a mile past where you want to go, turn around and come back. I mean, it's very hard, and I can't even imagine the delivery people in the trucks and things getting in and out of there. I've struck hard, and I can tell you, this isn't
You
going to.
don't care about the cars in the street.
I'm saying.
Well, we do care about, we do care about people's lives.
Take all the left-hand turn lanes out.
So this is.
I have to go 2 miles past to get back to Harbor Freight, the way that picture looks
And
like.
people are not gonna stop.
Let me pull up our map. If we're gonna just look at the we want to look at the design a little bit. So we'll start at Powell, which I think is the beginning blitz. Powell, from Powell to Division is one of our areas where we see the most collisions, the most fatalities. And so I'll just scroll for a minute to kind of get a sense. In this image, this white line is median island, and then where it's a lighter gray, no median island. So you can see that there's quite a bit of breaks in them, and we've created left turn lanes to make that movement into those neighborhood streets and into Eastport.
Yeah, left turn rates are great. We love them.
Great.
Have you learned from Division to this concept?
Yeah, we have. Yeah,
Have
and
the
I.
same people designing 82nd has been anything to do with Division?
What do you mean? Sorry, say that again.
Same people.
Your planners, your architects, anybody that worked on Division and thought that was a good idea?
It's actually a different design team, but
But you've learned from
but we've
Division.
learned from it, absolutely. And one of the things that we've learned was that as Gena was mentioning, look underground to make sure that we can plant trees where we can plant them. We also learned that we need to work really closely with the businesses. So we've gone door to door. We've held about 6 open houses on this project. We've done mailers. We've done about 50 one-on-one meetings with business owners, looking at their specific property and saying, how do your deliveries get here? We want to make sure those folks can still get here. And 99% of them, we've been able to come to agreement on things that work for them and things that work for us in terms of safety. Yes, we learn things. It is this design treatment is something that works from a safety perspective, and I think maybe what we learned from Division was saying, we could have used a little bit more tweaks or maybe some more breaks in the median could have helped facilitate that accessibility. But we also have 2 different streets that have very different contexts. So on 82nd Avenue, it's so narrow that you can't actually make a U-turn. And so we do need to provide more opportunities for people to take a left because they're not going to be able to take the U-turn in the way that you are on Division. And then we have a lot less, as you know, the streets dead end and they tee and they jog. And so we just don't have the same opportunities easily to get around the neighborhood if you can't take a left turn across the street. And so those are the types of design decisions that have been made throughout the project to make sure that this operates differently. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you're doing this on this particular project or not, but if you do make a change in how traffic is going to flow, like from a cross street, then normally you'd be able to turn left onto one of these major boulevards. Now you're not going to be able to. You're only going to be able to turn right.
Yes, on some of these, that's correct.
Right.
So example is
now, does anybody, is this part of the deal to go tell different mapping companies like Google Maps or whatever the Apple is? Because there are times we drive for Meals on Wheels that Google's telling me to turn left, and there's a brand spanking new island keeping me from turning left, and it's been like that way for months. Right? So I got to know not to trust Google when I come to that street, right?
Yeah, I run into this all the time personally, and yes. So you would imagine that we would have a formal relationship maybe with Google Maps, but we don't. We have the same tools that you all do, which is just reporting it. But once we do have a traffic change, we are on there and we are reporting. You cannot make that turn anymore, and that's about all we can do. But yeah, we are reporting that, and if you are able to report that, if you see something that isn't up to date, that would be really helpful. Because yeah, I agree. I see a lot of folks making interesting choices, I think, because Google tells them that they can. So, yeah. You gotta,
I was just gonna suggest where you can
yeah.
put trees versus just a concrete.
We
raised pad.
want to put trees where we can. So on the map that you have and up here, the green dot suggests we are pretty sure we can place a tree there. There are some places that we are going to take some more time on the design of. So Powell is a good example of, as I mentioned, ODOT owns it. It also, it's a really congested intersection. Mm-hmm. It's also with a transit project likely going to be pretty pivotal to making sure the bus can still run smoothly through the intersection. And so one of the things that we did with our last design iteration was we had Powell originally as an area that we were going to pave and do a little bit of signal modification work. We took that out of our project, and we're going to defer that work to when we know what TriMet and Metro really wants to do with the transit project, and deliver that work when we can be a little bit more certain that the design is right. So we are not paving through this segment, so from Powell to Lafayette, we won't be paving as part of this project. And then there's some area south of Lafayette that we will not be paving. We also have some work to do with Eastport Plaza and the neighbors right around Bush Street to really understand what the long-term design for that section should look like. And so that's some additional public engagement work that we need to do before we land on that design. Yeah.
Also, when you plant trees in the middle of the street, I drove a bus for 40 years, and my father was a truck driver. Mm-hmm. And when you take a large vehicle like that past those street trees, they're not going to have limbs on them anymore.
Yeah, it's an automatic
and the
pruner.
vehicles are going to be scratched and banged up. So, okay.
I hear you. We have our contractor on board for 3 years to do the tree establishment and pruning, get those trees in the right shape. And I don't have the dimension right on the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure the medians themselves are 12 or 13 feet wide. So the trees, have some space in there to grow. I think MLK, the medians there are like 6 or 8 feet wide, so they're a lot more narrow. So they should be give some more space there. Were you having a question too? Yeah. Okay.
I've got a question. Yeah. How long ago was the Division 1 completed?
It was just completed last fall, I believe.
So are there any statistics on the changes that you guys were looking for?
Oh, such a good question. Yeah, we, I'm actually, I can't remember if this is a public report or just a report that went internal. I don't know. Oh. There are statistics. There's a team working on getting, if it's not already public, let me look it up. If it's not already public, it will be soon. We're working on a report to say at least what we know about the statistics of the performance of the street,
exactly.
Performance of the bus.
What impact has this had in the goal you're trying to do? Because to me, it seems like what you're trying to do is stop people from street racing and doing their burnouts and what have you. And we've got to draw out drug use. A lot of people driving drugs and homeless that are the cause of a lot of this stuff. Yep. And so I'm just wondering what statistics, what can you show the Vision Guy accomplished?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the biggest goals with both of these projects is around safety. Safety is one of the things that takes a little bit of time for us to understand well, because the numbers of crashes, the patterns that we see happen over a course of like 5 years, not necessarily 6 months. And so I know that we are working towards a 1-year report, and then my belief is that once we have data from the state compiles all of our crash data and helps us, understand what happened. There's a bit of a lag time for getting that data, and our goal is to then put out a safety report to say, did this do what we intended to do in terms of safety? So yes, we are working on it. Let me check if it's actually available yet.
Completed, because if it's only 6 months ago, you don't have a lot of data.
We don't have a lot of data yet. Yeah. We do have data. TriMet has given us data on the bus service in terms of frequency, how often it gets stuck in congestion, how much faster it is than the previous bus. So we have statistics about that. The crash data will come later. So I will provide David with anything that I have. I'm going to flip back over to the show to see if I can share a few more things with you. Trees. We have a number of species here that we're planting. We have this design that I handed out. It goes block by block. It's available online as well. I wanted to share that we collected a lot of feedback so far in this project. So we've had some opportunities for formal comments. We provided those opportunities both in person and online. We've had meetings, tabling. We have an email list. I'd love to have more people on the email list if you want to join. And then we've done door hangers, postcards, things like that. And we have reports on the engagement that we've done if you want to take a look at that too. I don't know that I have time to go into this because I do want to share a couple other projects that are going on, but generally I'd say overall what we heard from our public feedback so far is both support for the types of things that we were doing, support for improving safety, improving walking, folks with disabilities being able to use the ADA ramps that we'll put in, especially excitement for trees, lighting, fixing the potholed street, wanting to see additional designs, and also wanting to see more areas of 82nd improved. We've also heard, what's going to happen to folks who are living on the street right now. Making sure that we're including people of color in our engagement is important for folks. And then, likewise, we heard concerns. Many folks have continued to express concerns about safety, especially houselessness and crime, potholes, garbage. We've absolutely heard concerns about medians and making sure that we're not blocking businesses.
I can see those elevated platforms becoming more areas where people can congregate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to challenge you on something.
Yeah.
Project.
Okay.
I have to drive 82nd. I don't have to, but it's the
it's the shortest route.
for me to get to my job. I want you to say late July when the weather's really warm at night, drive down that at 5 in the morning and see how many people are wandering around in the middle of the road so high that you're literally dodging homeless.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was talking about. There's a lot of that, and it seems like, we're spending, I don't know how much it's costing tens of millions of dollars.
Yes.
And the problem is, a lot of them.
We've had a lot of trees planted in this area, but you can walk around and see they're decimated because they cut them down to burn them for fire. So, I know this is a beautiful idea. I'm just saying there's a lot of things that we see as people in the neighborhood that, we're paying for, but then if nobody's watching over this, it's just torn down.
And I think that you're going to turn the medium into a campsite, being that wide.
Yeah. And being with all the trees and the shade.
Yeah,
there's no higher tents on it.
Am I not right?
The trees won't be there long, they're planted.
I'll try to help that. So
Yes. I don't know that we we have had this question before, and when I've asked other folks in the city, especially folks that do work with houseless, our impact reduction program is what it's called. They don't see a lot of tents go up in the median and in medians across the city generally, and when they do, because of safety concerns, it's addressed more quickly, I'd say, than somebody who's posting it who has a tent on the sidewalk. So that's my understanding. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. I hope that doesn't happen. And I guess the good news about the trees, our contractor is going to be out there for 3 years, watering, making sure those trees are staying alive. They're going to replace any trees that get hit. So they should have a chance to get
I don't think
established.
you have to worry about trees getting hit, more like them chopping them down and using them for firewood.
Are you guys gonna
Hopefully
put
not.
trees on the sidewalks too, like,
We will be putting trees on the sidewalks, yeah.
I think trees on the sidewalks, a lot of lighting and expanding, widening the sidewalks like you have there?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Great.
Because the only reason I say this is
Yeah.
because we spent a bunch of money a few years ago on Johnson Creek being rewired. And every tree there is gone now that the city has planted.
They chopped them down.
They chopped them all down. Where I particularly work at, they just cleaned up a homeless camp. It took them 3 days for them to show up, 3 days in a row to clean the whole camp out finally.
Sure.
And they're right on the creek.
Well, check out Brazil, they do it time after time. Clean it out, take it back,
Yeah,
cut down the trees, replant them.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
ongoing cycle.
It just seems like a lot of money being spent on trees for firewood.
Well, I hopefully don't get cut down. If they do, they'll get replaced for. Yeah.
You already have examples of them wiping out whole sections of trees, like from 82nd up, Johnson Creek, there's up to be 111th. Yeah. That whole area was redone 5-6 years ago. There's not a tree left that the city planted.
Well, hopefully with a lot of lighting
Yeah.
and the businesses maybe booming
Yeah.
and people visiting the businesses,
The corridor.
that
I
will
hope
be,
so.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, like, right, skepticism that something that we do will happen in the way that we imagine it. So yeah, I'm sure that some of these things won't come to pass exactly the way that we imagine it. I don't know what our alternative is. I don't know that we have an alternative to do this without planting trees. I don't know that we want to just repave and never plant trees in our city. A, it's policy that we have to plant trees, and B, I don't know that we want to live in a city that doesn't have any trees at all, just because we're afraid that someone's going to cut it down. Yeah.
I was just gonna chime in on that. I actually serve on the community advisory group for Bill Dinner. I'm also the president of the 82nd Avenue Business Association. And there probably will be some trees lost. I think we always see that and everything, but having the space for trees and making the room for it is an important design element, because when we design these roads, we're designing for decades, not tomorrow. And we need to have we know the trees are going to have to be part of that. We might lose some trees, we might lose all the trees, but we'll keep replanting them, and we'll keep doing the work to clean up our district and build it back up so that people don't abuse the trees further, and then we'll fill those spots again. But we can't just shy away from trying to do something nice and move in the right direction because of bad influences in our community. I think we do have to fight. We have to waste a little bit of money fighting that fight. But if we don't do that, we'll never get to the dream of what we want for 82nd Avenue and for our homes.
And I think
Are you happy with our plan? Do they have enough?
Yeah, we
turn
actually
lanes and all
endorsed.
that?
We actually endorsed the plan as a business association.
Okay.
And of course, I've worked with some of these plans in advanced stages as well as reviewing them after the fact.
So they're okay with the turn lanes?
Yeah, we spent months working with people who are members as well as people we aren't members, but still we represent all businesses, even if they're due paying or not.
Right.
And just making sure that their voices were heard And PBOT was really good about doing the legwork, the go door to door, and talk to everyone. Everyone who was willing to talk and explain their point was heard. Not everyone was accommodated 100%, but people definitely felt heard and accommodated and treated with respect to their business, and that was very important to us.
So it won't be another division?
It won't be. We also, as an organization, it was before my time on the board, but we worked on division as well, and from fellow board members who talked to me about that experience, this was a much better engagement with PBOT.
Well, again, I'm 1,000% for as many trees as we can in the medium versus just a raised concrete. It's just so much better visually, pretty, all.
Yeah, great. I know I'm almost out of time. I wanted to share just kind of our timeline for this project. We are going to construction late summer, starting with some underground work, some utility movement work, and this project will be in construction for about 2.5 years. And so I'm sure I'll be back here within 6 months or a year, and we can talk about kind of the construction impacts. I know this is going to be a big impact on the community while we're in construction. So I do want to say, I also have my emails in here on our phone. Just reach out if things are getting too heinous, and we can try to work through them. I'm going to take just a couple seconds to say 3 other projects that are in construction are going to be soon. So the ODOT 1, faster to the city limits, is already under construction. You might know about that. So the state is running that project, and we've been coordinating with them because we have some overlapping work happening.
Can you go back? What is that one again?
Yes.
Where's Thompson Road?
Yeah, Thompson Road is down in Clackamas County, and so it's just past the county line. So here's Clatsop up here, and so one of their new pedestrian crossings is down at Thompson.
And what are they doing? What are they doing?
They're doing paving, ADA ramps, a few pedestrian crossings. I think last I saw they were down at Tolman or so. So they've been doing the ADA ramps for the last 6 or 9 months.
Are they putting in any of the medium?
They're not putting in new medians. No, not at this time. Yeah. Let me just mention 2 other things real quick. Brentwood Darlington project. This is one intersection at 82nd Avenue and Knapp. So we have a pedestrian and bicycle crossing going in. It does have a median island here to help people get across that street. And so that's headed into part of the project's in construction. This intersection will be in construction soon. And then we have 3 other pedestrian crossings coming south of Foster. So we have Ramona, Tolman, and Lambert. Ramona and Tolman are pedestrian crossings, and then Lambert will be a full traffic signal. So it'll be just kind of your traditional, each leg can turn any way they want. But the Ramona and Tolman will look more similar to this, where both of those intersections will have that pedestrian island through the middle. It'll be a right turn only onto 82nd. Yeah.
I think the pedestrian crossing lights where the signals, instead of up high like these, they're down here more eye level with the driver, and they flash. Those are really effective. They really get the driver's attention because they're eye level with you.
Sure.
There.
Yeah, I hear that. I've heard both things. I've heard some folks like the flashing and some folks like the traditional red, yellow, green signal. But yeah, I've heard that from other folks too. The main reason that we're not putting most of these signals aren't going to be on a post is because they get hit by drivers, and we have to replace them. In fact, there's one location where we kind of stopped replacing it because it just kept getting hit so much. So we're gonna bring as many up above the cars as possible. For that reason, I know. So, and most of them will look like the traditional traffic signal. We will have some flashing still, but we do find that driver compliance is actually better with the red, yellow, green because it's just everybody understands what it means. Whereas sometimes the flashing does go off when no one's there. So that's a challenge.
What are the criteria for Ramona, Tolman, and Lambert? What's the criteria that you guys use to see if something needs to be addressed in any of those ways?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a few things that fed into the design or fed in the decision about where to do the pedestrian crossings is how far away is the next signalized intersection or crossing. So a lot of these are trying to fill a gap that we have. So at the Ramona intersection, for example, I think someone would have to walk 5 minutes to get to the next signal, and we know that some folks are just not going to do that. And so that's part of the reason how we chose, and part of it was around connecting with the neighborhood greenway network, so connecting people east and west and knowing where they need to cross 82nd to get around safely. And part of that is a larger strategy to create parallel routes to 82nd Avenue where people can walk and bike on a more pleasant street away from traffic, especially people biking. So we want to get folks away from 82nd if they are biking and trying to get north and south. So that's part of it. I think I'm out of time, so I will just skip down to my contact. And I can send these slides over too, so you all can look at them in more detail. But thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
And you thought you would need a whole hour.
I know. Well, they all ran late. Gena took way too long. So. Oh, that's fine. This is great. I really appreciate you all. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. The meeting's adjourned.